The question was if I'm good and if I'm ready. I think I'm good. I'm not sure if I'm ready. So, long story short, this will be a very interesting talk because I do a lot of freestyle live demo. And one funny thing about this whole AI agentic thing is that it's not deterministic. So, I have no idea if what I want to do in 20 minutes or 15 minutes demo will work. So, my goal of the talk is to give you some inspiration and some kind of like glimpses in what you could maybe want to try and what you maybe can combine to work with those things. It's not a comprehensive talk about all the topics because we have only 30 minutes and that's basically it. I want to focus on some DevOps topics, some platform engineering topics, so we stay in this area a bit, but where we go exactly, we'll see. I'm Jonas, I'm from Let's Boot. I do a lot of platform engineering, also build some software and do a lot of teaching. And it's interesting, like about 2.5 years ago, I think, maybe it was 2 years ago, I was already like, hey, we have this AI coding, there was this GPT engineer and you could write your first software, and I had the first trainers who were like, hey, we have to teach that. And I was already using it to kind of reformat some old training material. And that was back in the days, do you remember when you had a context window of like 8,000 tokens? It was like the hard times when you really had to think about what you do. And I was like, probably not yet, not ready yet. And then we did one course at Basel Hack, a hackathon, like a warm-up, like a bit of kind of vibe coding with copy-pasting and some kind of like first of these tools. Does anybody remember GPT Engineer? That was kind of like one of the first projects where you had a Git repo and you wrote some lines in a markdown file, and then you triggered some Python script and it tried its best with this kind of like, what was it? GPT 3.5 or something crazy. If we look at this today, we couldn't even imagine how we could do anything with this kind of model. And then it tried to somehow, with the 8,000 tokens, build something. So I said, okay, this is maybe fun for a hackathon, but we can't teach that to our customers because there's just too many things it's struggling to do, and too many things you have to do to give it any value. So kind of like the effort you put in and the value you get out is this thing. And then like 1.5 years ago, we had a combination of a trainer telling me, hey, we should look into that more to do actually training. I was already using it for myself a lot. And we had a customer who said, like, can we do a training around DevSecOps with AI? Just one day, just trying it out. And then he showed me some tools, and there was a big change happening then. And the big change was what I really want to tell anybody who works with that. And the big change is the way you work with the tools, the way you work with the model, going from kind of like giving it a question, hoping for the perfect result, to having this kind of like interactive back and forth, like peer programming. Like if you do peer programming and you sit together at a keyboard and you talk to each other and you think about what's the plan, and somebody tries something and builds something and the other person is watching. In this case, it's also not like you're sending some minimal prompt, copy some code somewhere else and some other person has to figure out the best answer and sends it back to you. The other person, if we would talk about the model like a person, also sits with you at the keyboard. So you give the other person the option to try out something, to look up something, and to also verify the assumption that the other person does. And you look what the other person does, and you interact and say, stop, what are you trying? What are we really trying? Do we want to go a step back? And this is kind of this agentic workflow, which then really changed for us the idea of being able to teach something that we think can benefit most engineers, be it software engineers or platform engineers or whatever you want to call yourself, in their daily work. which means you try to have a peer programming situation where you have the model on one side, which doesn't do anything if it's not called, because in the end it's just like a huge amount of numbers in memory. But you have this agentic tool in the middle, and you're communicating through that with the AI, and the AI gets the chance to also try out things on a system, which you can either stop or allow or interact or interfere or go back. This is kind of the cycle we recommend. Make sense? Okay, let's see what we can do. So, when I tell somebody to start or look into agentic engineering, I usually recommend or recommended, this also changes over the weeks, an open source tool which is called Cline. It's just a VS Code extension, but it actually really doesn't matter what you try, what you use, as long as it can integrate with the environment you need, as long as you can stand behind the organization that is behind the tool, and as long as it provides you the workflow. I personally like Cline because it was one of the first tools which had this kind of like agentic interaction integrated in the IDE, very powerful and also very transparent about what it's doing. So if we look at Cline, we have a prompt, a chat window. There is nothing new, and we have the option to choose models, and we have also the option to choose model provider. That's also a reason why I recommend Cline and why I was quite hesitant to switch to Claude Code, which I now have to admit is way more powerful, especially with its ecosystem. But a long time I was like, I'm not going into Claude Code because it forces me to have a subscription with a specific company. And I want to be able to choose the model, and I want to be able to choose the model provider, depending on the task I have, which is a cost question, but it's also a trust question, but it's also an ability question and a performance question. So this is one choice. Now this changed in the last weeks, that now you can use Claude Code, for example, which you probably heard of, which I also will do a short demo. You can use Claude Code to with most providers. There is still some kind of like cases which are tricky, and they're like very strong competitors to Claude Code actually quite a lot, because what it does is not that magical. It's just very good at it. The way they did it is really good at it, like open code and so on. So when we work with an agentic tool, we can give it a task and tell it something crazy. Let's say, build a mermaid diagram generator using Alpine.js and a minimal Go backend. The open router token is in lab open router token, I hope. And then we can basically say, let's allow it to do anything, and let's just YOLO away. That's all the YouTube videos you see out there. And now it starts to try its best to do whatever I want it to do, or whatever it thinks I want to do. And as you know from those YouTube videos, it's actually quite good at it. I mean, Claude Code is a bit better than those YouTube, than Cline, but still it's quite good at it. The question is just, is this the way we would want to build it? Is this the way we would do it? Would we send like one WhatsApp message somewhere else to some engineer or team of engineers and just have them do something without talking to us and hoping for, sorry, I missed here a checkbox box. Here, this one I missed, sorry. That's not what we would do. What we would do is actually, and you will be surprised how good it is, but I will cancel it now because that's actually not the point of the talk. What we would do is we would actually tell it, hey, let's first talk together what we want to do. And let's first, I hope I don't destroy anything. Okay. It's like I'm Git. Okay, let's first make a plan. So the hardest part for the model usually is, although there are now more and more better methods to get them to do that, is the hardest part for the model is not to just come up with a solution. Models want to directly come up with a solution, but that's because that's what they are trained for. So the hard part for the model is usually to make it go a step back and say, okay, let's first think about what we want to do. Let's validate what you want to do, and let's think about the tools we need to build that. And in my previous company, we had a strategy because back then it was quite hard to find engineers, especially for us as a like 20 engineer company in Basel. So we had a lot of junior engineers, and that was the same topic. Like usually, if you have a senior engineer, it's not just general. Some junior engineers are super good, and some senior engineers are very chaotic. But like in general, if you don't have that much experience, you try to do too much without thinking too little about what you want to do. And if you're more senior, you're more like structured and thinking, okay, what tools do I want to work with, and what's the workflow I want to go after? What do I need to decide? What do I need to know? And when I started to work with the model, it suddenly reminded me of me coaching or working with those junior engineers. The only difference is the model knows a crazy amount of random stuff. Some of it is very valuable, and some of it is really not valuable because it's more distracting than actually helping. And that's a big difference. The juniors we had usually didn't know like every programming language to some crazy level. But still, like I suddenly realized like it's actually quite similar as we started to work with those junior engineers, because we had the issue, we had only a few senior engineers who really knew like how to build stuff, and way more junior engineers who had time. So what do you need to do? You need to kind of like have time slots, sit together with them, make a plan, think with them about like what's the amount of work you can usefully do, so I have a chance to check what you did, and we can talk about your next step. And this is basically the methodology which I think is something you can transfer to the model very well. So what you can say is you can say, let's work on a plan to build a mermaid diagram generator using Alpine JS and Go backend. And then the model should try to think about what we build, should understand the environment, and should ask me questions and propose a plan and interact with me about what we want to do. That's basically the idea of this planning stage. So now you see this magical thinking thing here, which basically just says that that you told the model to basically have a certain amount of tokens it can use to reflect on what it wants to do, and give it some kind of like extra runway of talking to itself. That's kind of like the easiest way I try to explain it. But I technically don't fully understand the difference between the thinking and the non-thinking thing. And now we can have a plan, and we can talk about this model, this strategy. And then we suddenly say, like, okay, but is this the pattern we want to use? I prefer to put the front end into a separate subfolder, and so we can treat it as its own project and deploy it separately. I need a way to configure the front end to know where the back end is. The back end needs to use OpenRouter for now, and I'll provide the OpenRouter token in a environment variable. So I can give it more input. I can see, okay, it does something with a structure that I don't prefer. I prefer a different structure. I see it maybe has some assumption or some information it just doesn't know that I want to have, because I usually don't think about everything at the beginning. And then it will basically adjust its plan. Now, that's a funny thing. I'm so thankful for this example. That's really nice. That's not something you will have to fight with models a lot. Is models are always out of date. Does anybody know why the model is always out of date? Outdated. Why is the knowledge of the model always outdated? Because the things that the model so-called knows, we call it know it. The information that the model reflects in this big fog of math, of numbers, can only be the information that it was fed at the time of training. It can't be anything newer. So if you try to build anything with using other models, you will sometimes really struggle and fight with the model to use actually to refer to a newer other model, because it just says that doesn't exist. I don't know of that. So this is the first point where we want to give the model a tool. So far, by the way, this is something I jumped over in my hurry. I just enabled these kind of tools, which is kind of like reading files, reading project files, edit project files, running all kind of commands, and this is the next topic, using MCP server. I will not talk much about MCP server because I think you already heard about it, but I want to now verify that it actually uses a reasonably new model. So I will tell it, I think that's off, there is a newer model. Please verify newest model versions for OpenAI. I don't like OpenAI. Let's take something else. Should we use Grok? No, that's not better. Oh, who could we use? Okay, let's go with the company who doesn't want to be evil. Newest model version for Gemini. And now let's see what it does. Let's see what it does. Let's see if it comes up with what it should do. Okay, it did it. So what it did now, it called an MCP server, which exposes web search to the model. By the way, if we talk about these kind of things in very simple terms, we like to say the model calls something. Probably you already talked about that in the MCP talk, but the model can't do anything. All we do here is string concatenation. We put together text, we throw it at the model, we get text from the model back, and we look at it. And if in that response from the model is some specially formatted text, we say, oh, this is something it wants to do, and that's where then the MCP servers come in. So it now got this information, and now we can basically go and say, yeah, let's go with, let's not risk it. And it's actually not even completely up to date, because there is a Gemini 3.1. So, but I will not waste time now. I will say, okay, let's use this. Also, I need Docker files to build containers, and also I need GitLab CI YAML files to build and push the containers to my registry. Here I got an example how to do that. Let me see what I will use. Okay. Let's go, I think this one. So I tell it how we usually build containers at our organization, and then I tell it to use this. I'm not sure if I can actually refer it. I think it will not accept this. I will. Ah, can I do this? No, but I can say it will look it up. Okay, so let's do that. Now, what I just did is I told it to search something to verify that the information is correct, that it was assuming. I chose from what it suggested, and then I told it some more information about what I wanted to do, and I referenced an example that we in our organizations have, which, by the way, makes sense. It's crazy to go to a model and just tell it in an empty space, just build something for an organization, especially if you're not like a startup where you're one person sitting in a Starbucks with your laptop and, I don't know, one serverless application where you can decide anything on your own. Usually that's not this kind of like empty space that you're moving in. You're moving in an organization with a lot of dependencies, which are organizational, which are technical. And what do you do with a junior engineer if you want them to not just build the vanilla Node.js task list? You go and look, where do we have it? Where is it documented? Where do we have an example how to do that? So that's the same thing I tell it, is basically I tell it, look at an example that I have and understand our structure and understand how we work. Now what I will do now is I will say, because I don't want to waste too much time on that, of course, we want to do DevOps, DevSecOps. We don't have enough time to do a lot of sec, is I want to tell it, okay, let's write down that plan. Let's write that down as a plan in plan.md. I hope that works. So I switch to act and I tell it this. Now if somebody thought like, hey, I will never do a training at this company because he says the AI is allowed to read all files and is allowed to execute all commands. You would probably be right if this would be my local machine. But this is not my local machine. This is a lab environment. It's similar to a dev container. It is its own isolated environment with its own development Kubernetes cluster, with all the things that I need to efficiently engineer software and do DevOps and test things. It has its own like Argo CD. It has its own Git repo. Obviously, there is still ways to use this to do something malicious, of course, but at least it should not be able to destroy my production database of my production GitLab for our 3.5, yeah, okay, it's 3,220 something alumni. Okay, so now we're in this peer programming mode. Did you see something? I told it to do the plan, to write out the plan, and now suddenly it starts to write Go. And I'm like, stop, no. Why are you writing Go? I didn't tell you to write Go. I told you to write the plan. That's this peer programming situation. Now I take over the keyboard and say, give me a second, wait, let's first look at the plan. Let's maybe just edit this file, because do it in here is maybe annoying. So I showed how to make it search the web. I showed how they can use tools. So what we did now was, by the way, not just like prompt, answer. It was prompt. The AI did some stuff, and then it gave me a suggestion, and then I told it how to continue. And we even used MCP servers, and we used context. We told it to check files. So, by the way, this is also very nice. You can check how much context you have. You have also breakpoints where you can jump back. But now I want to close this tool, and I want to say, it's not a conventional commit. Excuse the time. So doing what I just did feels so good. Git stash u. Keep what is valuable and being able to throw away what you don't need. Keep what is valuable from the conversation and reset the interaction point you have with the model. It's like taking a break. Let's take a break. Let's take a coffee. Talk about it maybe at the coffee. Come back, look at the flip chart again. And don't try to keep everything in your mind. So now I want to switch tools. Now I'm in Claude Code. If you use Cline, Claude Code, OpenCloud, GitHub Copilot agent, it does not matter. I really do not care about the tool. And also the models, they all converge to the same thing. Like they have a little bit priority on that, or they have a little bit priority on that. This one is a little bit better at that. This is a bit cheaper. This is a bit or let's say this is waste. They are willing to waste more money. they are willing to waste less money on tokens or GPUs, and so on. So this is kind of like this spectrum, and this tool is maybe a little bit better at that. This tool is like doing sub-agents. So 2 weeks later, this tool is doing the same. So finding a tool you find comfortable with and learning the patterns that make it work. That's the thing you want to do. So now I'm in another tool, Clean Slate. It only knows what is written in the default information that the model gets. Like the information that it's getting put into the context, meaning that long bunch of text that's thrown into it. And now I will tell it, we already have a plan. Sorry. Start sub-agents to implement front-end and back-end in parallel. And now I switched the tool, and I kept what is valuable, which is our plan that we created with the other tool. And this tool is able to spawn multiple of those kind of like agentic loops and allows me to basically have more code generated in a shorter time to have more work reviewing it. So I see I'm getting slowly out of time. And this is really a very risky talk. Okay, so now it didn't know something, so it created this GitLab CI YAML, and it has to use the demo GitLab CI YAML. And then we just hope it works, because what I will do now is a very bold move. I will give it one more chance. Yeah, you see, this is the point. Did you know this meme where somebody is with a coffee telling via voice to text the AI to change the distance between two divs to increase it by 5 pixels? This is exactly that example. I'm now discussing with the AI, which is not understanding me, that I actually wanted to use the demo GitLab CI because GitLab CI is not considered in our project. Instead of saying, forget about it, I will just do this, and I just save me like 5 arguments until it gets what I want. So I hope that works. And this is the reason the model is kind of right, because it does not know why demo GitLab CI should be used. It just sees that there is a job in there. And now, let's continue, and let's go git ACP YOLO. So now we're not in the agentic professional engineering area anymore, but that's like 30 minutes. Now we're like, that's why I call it YOLO. And now let's just hope it does something. Yeah, that's also something it can't know, which is it's TechTalk. So this is the question about management. But why do we need engineer? Can tell it to program that I don't know, dog food organizer app, and you're like, yes, but that runs on your local laptop at home and not in our data center with like 30 years of legacy and dependencies. Right. Okay. Okay. So now it builds those containers. And because my time is up, I will not fix that. No. And the reason is really simple, because the path, of course, is wrong. But you see what I mean? It's about the context you provide, the tool you use, the workflow you have, and understanding the patterns that make things work, and understanding the issues the models and the tooling have, which lead to bad outcomes. That's kind of, and I really want to fix it, but I know I don't have enough time. So let's go back. So the most important things is small steps, safe environment, and this kind of like peer programming, approach of having this kind of like interactive things, steps, and finding kind of like the optimum point for your project, like project and knowledge to be effective and efficient. Because using those tools and the models and those processes is very dependent of what you want to do, what your knowledge is, where you want to go, and the tooling and environment you were able to use. So that's it.
Are there any questions for? Okay.
If you wanted to expand what you were doing with real peer programming in the sense that you wanted a colleague to join you working together on this, how would you do it? Do you both sit next to your laptop, or is there some way of distributing this multiple console GUI so more than one real person like yourself could do it, especially if you're not necessarily in the same area?
Ah, okay. So that's actual peer programming with like actual two humans building on that.
Yes, with your AI buddies and all this.
That's an interesting question. I mean, at the end, you need. I'm now actually working way more with Claude Code than with Cline. So I don't know. I'm a Unix guy. So I started Unix like in 1998. I think Screen or Tmux, and then you basically can use the same interface with two.
So the tool doesn't know that there's two of you. You're sort of.
I don't know. I don't know if it needs to know. I mean, it would not be that hard to build that actually. I mean, I played around with OpenClaw a little bit. So if you want to go really crazy, you could use OpenClaw and just chat both with it. But I think the problem is that the answers would not be the same. Yeah. So I think actually, just going a step back and say, I mean, it's at the end just a tool. It's a tool you write text in, it does something, hopefully the thing you want, and it shows you something, like any other software too. It just does way more and way more unpredictable stuff. So probably isn't there like also a VS Code sharing tool where you can kind of like work in the same VS Code, but probably it's just the same files. So really, really simple approach would be probably SSH into the same lab environment, and then just use Tmux or Screen in the same Claude Code and start a whatever Google Meet Zoom session. Yeah.
But it's definitely sort of a kludge. It's not really that it knows multiple
yeah.
users and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you could do that. I don't know how you could do that. I mean, with OpenClaw, I played around a little bit. You could do that. You can use OpenClaw. The problem with the OpenClaw is it's not really made for software engineering. So the problem with OpenClaw, it's quite intransparent about what it does. And that's why I really like, by the way, to start with Cline and not with Claude Code, because Claude Code is also sometimes quite too fast doing stuff. So if I actually teach the things, we have like 2 days, and then I make the engineers disable all the automatic stuff. So each step the AI does, they need to confirm. And usually also they see the diff of the changes, and they see, oh, this line it changed doesn't make sense, so they can interfere. But to show that in a demo would just take a little bit longer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've shown quite well that even if the AI does a lot of the heavy lifting, you need to understand a lot of the technology and the underlying mechanics and technologies that you're using. Do you think that's going to stay for a while, that knowledge, that we still need that in order to code, or is that going away and this is just like the next few months where we still need to know all this?
I actually don't know. But I think imagine we want to build a house. I don't know how to build a house. I think I know how a house should be, so I like it. But probably if I would draw it and have some company just building the house for me with my drawings, I don't know how nice of a house it is. It's a really tricky question. It's a tricky question. I don't know. I think for some areas it will change extremely fast, and for some areas it won't, and it will probably be depending on how high is the chance of a desired output versus the effort of giving it the right input. So some software engineering field, like probably, I mean, there is always this stupid image with like, back then we had people who were punching this kind of like, how is it called again, the paper with the holes and stuff. So I think there are software engineering areas which will change very much, and there are some which won't change that much. But the good thing is, as we all know, the customers want way more than we already can do. And we are pretty sure they will want even more if they see that we are faster and that we can provide more. So I'm somehow confident. I'm scared of other things more than going out of work. I'm more scared of like stuff being built too fast and rolled out too quickly because management sees, or what, it's not only management, but let's say it's also engineers. If you build stuff very quickly and you build so much stuff that you have no idea what it does because it's just too much and it seems to work very well, and you bring it on the market, it's maybe okay if it's the next, okay, that's a stupid example, but if it's the next dating app, it's maybe not the worst case. But if it's like some, I don't know, some diagnostic software that steers whatever, a medical device, it's probably a risky thing. Yeah. So I'm more afraid of, I'm not afraid of going out of work. I'm more afraid of stuff going very wrong because stuff is built too fast. Yeah.
Okay, I'd say that's enough for today. Thank you very much for attending. And thanks for all the speakers, and enjoy the food. Have a nice evening.